Alright, here I am as always above the frame, Karl Straub, and Telecaster's in the shot. I'm going to be talking today about some Danny Gatton type ideas and techniques. I want to emphasize up front, this is not a note for note transcription of stuff he played. It's more just kind of my interpretation of the kinds of things he did a lot. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what I think the aspects of his style were that contributed to the idea we're playing here. Okay. Gatton was unusual in that he combined influences that seemed very different. He liked to harmonize lines and make them into double stop lines. He would take a melody and harmonize it. I'm sure he got this from various places, but Chet was a guy who did a lot of that, and I'm sure Danny got some of the inspiration from him. But he would combine that sort of sophisticated Chet kind of approach to country and to melody. He would combine that, which Chet basically was taking ideas from classical and from jazz and western swing and stuff, sort of uptown things like that, and so Gatton was borrowing that, but he also was interested in sort of the bluesier kind of Bakersfield and chicken picking kind of stuff, which is more about feel and staccato and having a really intense attack on the string. And he liked to combine both of those approaches, which seem kind of different, but they fit together really well in his playing. And I think he was one of the first people to really put those two worlds together as well as he did. Anyway, okay, here's the idea. Without the chicken picking stuff layered onto it yet, we'll just talk about the notes here. You've got this pedal tone here, the B string, D note, 3rd fret, and then a moving line under it on the G string. Okay, it's here. And then. Okay. Once you get the double stop thing together. Once you can play those notes, try to make it staccato. Which I'm doing by just relaxing these fingers so they're still touching the string. That's really the trick I'm using there. Sometimes I'll also mute a little bit over here, but a lot of it really comes from here. Okay, now on top of the staccato thing, part of what chicken picking is for me, or part of what I like about it, is putting in these muted notes, often on the weak beats, the ands of things, like this. So I'm playing that, 1 and 2 and. Okay, I'm doing an up pick there. Okay, and that's really muted. You really don't hear a note there at all. Okay, in that case, I'm playing that muted up pick thing on the B string. Did I miss one in there? Now, you can, if you're playing it in this position, you don't have to mute so much on that open G note, because the open G string sounds good there, but somewhere else, there you want to mute that because it might not fit with the key. Okay, anyway, let's talk about this. There are more than one way to do a pick and fingers pattern. I like to do it with pick alternating with pick and fingers together, so like this. So the pick's coming like that. And in a way, I mean, I think the way I think about that is I'm really just playing a line with a pick, and then I'm harmonizing certain notes. A lot of the time, people like to think in terms of double stops happening all the time, and sometimes that sounds great. But I like to have a kind of a more a fluid line and then harmonize here and there. Uh, so when I say that I'm using the pick as part of the melody part, it's a little confusing to understand. But a lot of the time, people doing hybrid picking will alternate the pick with the fingers. And the pick will have a certain job, like it'll be on the lower strings, and then it's playing kind of a pedal tone thing or a bass line, while the fingers play the melody. And you can do that. And I think Don Rich would have played this thing kind of like this. So in other words, the higher stuff is just the fingers and not the pick. Let's see if we can see that here. Okay. Okay, but the way I would do it is. Now, they don't sound enormously different. I like to do it the way I'm doing it, alternating the pick in there with the fingers for the melody notes, just because I think it gives me more fluidity when I'm playing lines. And it's easier to get in and out of this kind of approach if I'm doing it that way. Okay. Um, Most of the time, when Don Rich played stuff like this, they were kind of like backup parts. And so using a fingering that would kind of jam up the situation with your hand and give you a little bit less freedom and flexibility wasn't necessarily an issue, because he was just going to play more stuff in that vein. But Gatton would play things like that and then integrate them into a moving line, and that's what I'm trying to do. And it's easier to do that, I think, if you're using the pick in the way that I do. Okay, last thing I will say is you can take a lick like this, or any lick really, but you can take a lick like this and practice it in all 12 keys. And the way to do that, it's always coming off of this E shape. Here's your root. That's a G note there, so that makes this a G chord. But if you move it up 2 frets, now it's an A chord because that's an A note. Here's a C, so that's a C. All right. Bear with me, people that already know this. Okay, so the way I recommend practicing all 12 keys is in this order. In C, and then F. Now F is tricky because it's open. You can do this thing there. It's just a little weird. Let's see. Or up here. B flat. E flat. A flat. D flat. G flat. B. E. A. D. And finally back to G. Alright, there you have it. Some Danny Gatton techniques that can be used either for accompaniment pattern or can be used to kind of be part of a line.